It was supposed to be an ordinary morning for Richard Hale, a morning of coffee, calls, and carefully scheduled meetings, but fate had other plans. As his black limousine rolled through the gates of his newest construction site, something inside him shifted. He didn't know why, but the moment he stepped out and looked across the busy workers in their yellow helmets and dusty vests, his heart stopped cold. His eyes locked on a young woman balancing a tray of cement tools in her slender hands. The sunlight hit her face just right, and for a split second, he couldn't breathe. She turned slightly, brushing away strands of hair that stuck to her forehead, and in that instant, his soul trembled. She looked exactly like Emily, his daughter, the same sharp jawline, the same gentle brown eyes, even the same tiny birthmark just below her ear. But that was impossible. Emily had been gone for 6 years. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the mysterious ways life brings people back together, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Stories like this remind us that no matter how broken life feels, hope always finds a way home. Richard stood frozen, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the soft dirt beneath him. The chatter of workers faded, replaced by a dull ringing in his ears. His body moved before his mind caught up. He took a few slow steps toward her, each one feeling heavier than the last. Memories flashed like lightning through his head, Emily at 5, running through the garden with her mother's laughter behind her. Emily at 12, sitting on the piano bench, asking him to listen to her new song, and then Emily at 17, storming out of the house after another bitter argument about his obsession with work. That was the last time he saw her. The accident happened 3 weeks later. The car was found in a river miles away. The rescue team said no one could have survived. Her body was never recovered. Now, staring at this girl, Richard's heart whispered the unthinkable. Could it be? He wanted to shout her name, to run forward and hold her, but something stopped him. Maybe it was fear. Fear of hope. Fear of being wrong again. The young woman didn't notice him. She was focused, determined, her hands trembling slightly as she carried the heavy tools. When she finally looked up and their eyes met, something flickered in her gaze, confusion, recognition, or maybe just the ordinary glance of a stranger. But Richard felt something powerful in that moment, something that cracked open the stone he had built around his heart. For years after losing Emily, Richard's world had turned to ice. The once warm and loving man had become a cold businessman, hiding his grief behind numbers and success. He poured his pain into building an empire, Hale Enterprises, one deal after another, one skyscraper after another, trying to outbuild the emptiness inside him. His wife, Clara, couldn't bear it. She tried to reach him, but his heart was buried under guilt. When she finally left, taking only her wedding ring and a letter, Richard didn't even stop her. He told himself love was a weakness, that emotion was a liability. But deep down, he was just afraid to feel again. And now, as he stood there staring at this worker who looked like the ghost of his past, the fortress he had built began to crumble. Over the next few days, he couldn't focus. He returned to the site again and again, pretending to inspect progress but secretly searching for her. Her name, he found out, was Lily. She worked part-time while attending night classes. She was polite but distant, always keeping her head down, avoiding unnecessary attention. Yet, everything about her, her walk, her voice, her kindness, mirrored Emily. One afternoon, Richard approached her. He told himself it was just curiosity, just a need for closure. He asked her simple questions, where she was from, who her parents were, what brought her here. She answered cautiously, unaware of the storm she had stirred in his heart. She mentioned she grew up in foster care, moving from one home to another, never knowing her real parents. There was a scar on her wrist, the same place where Emily had once been hurt when she fell off her bike as a child. Richard's breath caught when he saw it. He almost asked her then, almost blurted out the truth, but he couldn't. He didn't want to sound insane. Instead, he offered to help her financially, to pay for her education. She hesitated but eventually accepted after he insisted it was just a scholarship from the company. Days turned into weeks, and Richard found himself drawn to Lily's presence like a moth to light. He would watch her laugh with the other workers, her joy untainted by the weight of the world. Slowly, she began to trust him, confiding in him about her dreams. She wanted to become an architect, to design homes that made people feel safe. That word, safe, hit him like a punch. Because that's what he had failed to give his daughter. One rainy evening, Richard invited her to dinner at a quiet restaurant. She arrived nervous, dressed simply but beautifully. Over candlelight, they spoke for hours. He asked about her earliest memories, and she mentioned something that froze his blood, a recurring dream she had since childhood. In it, she was by a river, reaching for someone calling her name, but the voice always faded before she could see the face. She didn't know why it felt so real. Richard's hands trembled as he held his glass. He excused himself to the restroom, where he splashed water on his face, staring at his reflection. Could it be fate? Could she really be his Emily? He ordered a DNA test secretly, using a strand of hair she had left on her chair. The results took weeks, each day heavier than the last. When the call finally came, Richard sat in his office, heart pounding. The words on the phone shattered him completely. 99.8% match, biological father confirmed. The paper slipped from his hands, tears blurring the letters. Emily, his Emily, was alive. Somehow, miraculously, she had survived. But how could he tell her? How could he explain the years of silence, the grief, the lies of the past? He feared losing her again. He wanted to approach her gently, to earn her trust first. But fate, once again, had its own plans. A week later, Lily, Emily, was injured at the site. A collapsing scaffold pinned her leg. Richard rushed to the hospital, his suit covered in dust, his eyes wild with fear. When the doctors said she'd be fine, he collapsed into a chair, sobbing like a child. When she woke, he was there, holding her hand, unable to let go. She looked at him, confused, and whispered, "You're crying, why?" And in that moment, he told her everything, about the accident, the years of searching, the endless nights he blamed himself. He told her who she truly was, and showed her the DNA test. She stared at him in disbelief, tears streaming down her cheeks. The room was silent except for their shared sobs, the years of pain dissolving between them. In the days that followed, they began to rebuild what time had stolen. Slowly, carefully. Richard sold one of his companies to open a foundation in Emily's name, a scholarship program for children from foster homes. He told her he wanted to spend the rest of his life doing something that mattered, something that honored the second chance life had given them. Emily helped him design the logo herself, two hands reaching out over a river. Years later, as they stood side by side at the opening ceremony of their foundation, Richard looked at his daughter and whispered, "You saved me twice, once when you came into my life, and again when you came back." Emily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Maybe we saved each other, Dad." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every story here reminds us that miracles don't always come in flashes of light, sometimes they come quietly, disguised as ordinary people. Backhand index pointing right. Special request, comment below, do you believe fate gives us a second chance to love again?